Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Rishab, and I'll be happy to host this session for you today, along with our presenter, Hannah, who will be walking us through the process of creating shop drawings for floor and roof trusses. Feel free to type your questions or comments in the chat or the Q&A section, and we'll be happy to address them at the end of this session. And that's it for me. I do hope you enjoyed this presentation.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's webinar. My name is Hannah. I'm a software specialist here at StrucSoft Solutions GRAITEC Group, and today's topic is truss shop drawings. The webinar bullet points that we're going to talk about today: first of all, we're going to be creating a roof truss with the Truss Module, and then we're going to create a floor truss with the Floor Module. We're going to be setting up the truss shop drawing settings. We will set up the truss schedule settings as well, and then we will be generating shop drawings for roofs and floor trusses. I'm using advanced metal for today, build 8844. And let's jump into our model and officially start our webinar. So today we're talking about trusses. I'm going to be covering a few basics. Today's webinar will not be fully detailed where it comes to truss generation. We're going to focus more on shop drawings. Let's start with the basics. First of all, this is a Revit add-on or a Revit plugin for those of you who don't know. So MWF will need a model. You're going to need an architectural model before you start framing with MWF. A few things that we need to check before we start framing. First of all, you'll notice on my end that I've made the roof transparent. This is just a visual setting that we like to change, and we recommend that you work in the 3D view when you're working with trusses. You'll see why in a bit. This is because we have to pick some references. It's going to be much easier to pick these references when you're working in a 3D view. So the next thing we have to talk about is how to set up our Revit model for MWF, whether I'm going to cover actually whether it's walls, floors, roofs, it's the same concept. Let's talk about the walls first. With regards to the walls, whether you're going to be framing the walls with the wall module or you're going to be using the wall for the truss module, you're going to need to make sure. So if I click on this wall here, if I click on edit type, you'll need to make sure that the structure, if I click here on edit, is set up in a specific way that is compatible with MWF. The rules are you need to have one structural layer between the two core boundaries. The thickness has to be defined in Revit. This is not something that you can define with MWF. And lastly, this tick right here is actually very, very important. This is how the software will recognize that this is the structural layer. You're going to place framing over here in this layer using MWF for walls. And for trusses, this module will recognize that this is the structural element that is going to be bearing the truss. Any additional layers over here are allowed as long as they are above or below the core boundary. The function has to be anything but structure, so it's not allowed to be another structural layer. It can be any one of these. And if you're using the wall module, you can use these layers to add sheathing. But this is not our scope for today, so I'm just going to click on OK and continue to talk about roofs and floors. With regards to the roof, I'm going to click here on Edit Type. I'm going to go to Structure and click on Edit. These are the rules for MWF compatibility. You need to have one structural layer between the two core boundaries. The thickness has to be defined in Revit. You'll see later that this is something we're going to use as a reference when we build our truss. Any additional layers need to be above or below the core boundary, and they cannot be another structural layer. But just keep in mind that we cannot add sheathing in our truss module at the moment. And that's it. I'm going to click on OK. Let's talk about floors. I'm just going to hide this element here so that I can access the floor. Let me hide this one as well. OK. With regards to floors, it's pretty much the same concept. Let's go over it really quick. Let's click on Edit Type, go to the Structure, click on Edit. For floors, It's also important that there's only one structural layer between the two core boundary. The thickness has to be defined in Revit. And again, this tick is very important. You can have additional layers, but they have to be above or below the core boundary. They cannot be another structural layer. It can be finish, substrate, or finish 1 or finish 2. And you also have to define a thickness for Revit. But you don't need to use this layer to create sheathing for floors. You can actually create sheathing without having any additional layers. All you need is this. So I don't need this. I'm just going to click on cancel. And we're done talking about the Revit setup. Before we start with MWF, you're going to need to have your model ready, like we mentioned, and these are the elements that you would need. You're going to need walls, doors, windows, roofs, ceilings, and floors. These 3 elements can be used to create a truss. Just keep in mind that for the roof, it has to be roof by footprint. It cannot be roof by extrusion. So now that we had our little introduction on how we have to set up our model in Revit, now let's start to talk about trusses. You'll notice on my end that I've already created the end result just to show you how it's going to look at the end. I'm going to zoom in here. First of all, I need to switch to the Truss module. So I'm here in Advanced Metal. Let's zoom in here. You'll notice that I have some lines over here, and I left this actually on purpose to just explain a little bit how the Truss module works in MWF. So unlike other modules, the Truss module is a 2-step process. First, we're going to be creating a profile. We call this an envelope. You'll notice over here, this is a model group. This is created by MWF. You can also create your own model groups as well by creating lines. And then the next step is going to be that we're going to apply some sizes or some members. If I hover over here and click on tab, so this truss is the final result. It consists of multiple members with specific sizes, just like what I have selected over here. These members are going to be placed using the line profile that is created first, and then the sizes are going to be selected either by the user or by the software if you're using Advanced Metal and would like the software to engineer it for you. So these members are going to be placed just like we see over here using this envelope. So let's start from scratch. First of all, I'm going to need to switch to the Truss module. And this is the menu for using the Truss module. I'm going to be creating some envelopes, and then I'm going to be creating a truss. After that, we're going to talk about creating a shop drawing. Let's start by selecting the roof that we want to create a truss for. Then we go to the tool. I'm going to create some common trusses, and this is the only topic I'm going to cover today with regards to truss creation. We do encourage you to check out our other webinars that actually talk about truss profiles in depth. I'm going to just cover this for today. So I'm going to click, and then you get this dialog box. So as we mentioned, you're going to need some references from your model. This is why we're working in the 3D, and this is why we made the roof a little bit transparent. The first thing you have to do is select a main ridgeline. I'm going to go ahead and select the upper ridgeline. You'll notice over here there's a small green tick, and this means that this has been selected and we're ready to go to the next step. The next step is going to be that we have to select our supports. This is why the walls, it's very important that the walls are properly created in a way that is compatible with MWF. By the way, you can use beams and you can use framing as well. I'm going to click on supports. I'm going to select this wall over here, and I'm going to select this beam over here, and I'm going to click on finish. Then you're going to get this dialog box. If I was using only walls, I can select a layer, but I'm using a beam for one of them. So I'm just going to select the center. You can create a cantilever if you like. I'm going to keep that as 0, and I'm going to click on OK. And then it's going to ask me about the wall. So for the wall, I'm going to use the structural layer. You can use the entire wall. The wall alignment can be far, center, or near. I'm going to use center, and this is with regards to the structural layer. Beam alignment is deactivated because we're talking about this wall over here. And you can create a cantilever, but I'm going to leave it as 0, and I'm going to click on OK. The next thing is the offsets. You can pick by linear or by face. I'm going to leave the start and end as 0. The spacing is defined over here. I'm going to make this 2 feet. So there's going to be a 2 feet spacing between the envelopes. You can offset from outer face, which means that there's going to be an offset from where we selected the main ridge line, but I'm going to keep it at 0. You can add an additional truss at the end. You can also only create lines for truss profile creation. This means it's not an envelope. It means that there's another step to be taken before you can make it into an envelope. So I'm going to leave this as is. Everything you see here, you can't actually change. This is something, just something for you to view. This is being read from the architectural model. So this is the truss detail for common trusses, and we're done. We're going to click on OK. So the software has created some envelopes. As you can see over here, it has created multiple. And if I select one of them, you'll notice that over here, this is called custom envelope T003. And the one behind it is 4. The one behind it is 4. So the software will automatically create naming for these trusses. You can change the naming if you like. But the whole point is to have a group that is being repeated, and this is just to make life easier. It's going to make your model lighter, and if you adjust one of these groups, everything here that is repeated is going to be adjusted accordingly. Let's take a look at this. I'm going to actually select the wall and just going to carefully catch the beam, and let's select the roof. HI on my keyboard. Let's look at the front and see what happened over here. So this is the truss that we have created. And if I just show you this on its own, let me just actually take a look at the references. So what happened over here is that this line was created right in the middle or the center of the structural layer of this wall, just like we specified. And over here, the line was created right in the middle or the center of this beam, just like we specified. And the rest of the shape, you'll notice that the line over here is aligned with the roof. There's no offset because we didn't specify an offset. Let me just hide this for a second, and let's take a look at it from the front. So this envelope can be adjusted. So you'll see over here, you can click on Edit Group. You can make changes to these lines if you like. So you can change the truss profile. And when you're done, you click on Finish. And now let's go back to our model. The next step would be to create a truss out of these envelopes. I'm going to select this envelope over here. And then we're going to go to Create. And then you get this dialog box. If you had presets created already, you can grab them from over here. I don't have any created yet. And you can save them by clicking on Save As. You can load them from another file. And if you click on Manage, You can rename the setting, delete, move up or down. You can export a list or import a list, similar to what we see with walls when it comes to templates, but here in Trusses we call them presets. The first thing we see over here under the general is the display units. The first one is feet, inches, and 1/16 of an inch. The second one is millimeters. I'm using feet and inches for today. The truss category can be either floor or roof. Right now I'm using a roof, so this needs to be selected. Here is where you specify the web type, either W's or M's. So this is the direction of the truss, of the webbing. The truss type can either be LGS back-to-back or LGS wall truss. I'm going to use LGS wall truss for now. Here you can specify a truss name. And if you tick this option, it's going to be engineered by Advanced Metal by MWF. I'm going to keep this unticked for today. You can specify a project name, and here the number of plies, I'm going to keep it as 1. And I'm going to use the profile for truss width. If you untick this, you can specify a custom truss width from over here. Let's go to webbing, and there's a few settings to talk about over here as well. The node type right now, I'm using default. You can use single node. Diagonals orientation can be either intention, left, right, verticals only, or nodes only. Verticals position equal intersection D, which is the default. I'm going to use this for now, but you can use a fixed width. You can create diagonals only if you like. I'm going to have verticals at pitch breaks. This is why this is ticked. You can make a left heel offset and a right heel offset, but I'm going to leave these as zeros for now. You can add verticals on support, verticals at point loads. And for the webbing, this is the top max spacing. It can be defined from over here, and the bottom max spacing can be defined over here. Let's go to member sizes. These are the available catalogs. You do have to insert these before you start with your project. To insert these, you would just have to go to Revit insert and insert them just like you would insert any other Revit family. I've already done that prior to this webinar. Over here, you can switch between catalogs, and here you can see all the sections available with the different sizes. You don't need to have that many. Actually, we don't recommend that you keep that many. So let's just clean this up a little bit. I'm going to make a selection using Shift, and I'm going to go ahead and delete everything. Why? Because I want to add specific sizes of my own. So here I'm going to go to Add, and then I'm going to add some members from over here to over here. So here it says sections currently in pick list, and we're talking about the S-truss, and these are the available sizes. I'm going to start over here and just add the members that I want to use or I might need. And that's it. I'm going to stop here. And when I'm done, I'm going to click on the X. So now this is populated with the sizes that I mentioned. What I can do is send something to top. I can also move something up. And the order here is actually very important. The reason why the order is very important is because MWF is going to automatically use the first one unless you specify otherwise. If you are using Advanced Metal and you're having the software engineer for you, the software is actually going to try these one by one. It's going to start with the first one, and then the one right after, and the one right after, and etc. until the truss passes. So you can move these up or down. You can delete just like we did. We can add just like I just did. You can disable and enable a specific size as well. So you can also do the same process for the bottom cord, the webbing, and the heels. But for now, I'm just going to click on Apply to All so that the selection that I did applies to the bottom, webbing, and heels as well. That's it for here. Physical member, top track insertion width. I'm going to keep this ticked to consider track. Bottom track insertion width, I'm going to keep this ticked to consider track as well. Extra insertion thickness can be defined over here. Chord pitch break, I'm going to change this from open to lapped. Chord end cut can be in or out. Webbing, extra length of knot square, extra spacing between webs. This is just something you can tick. And then you have access. These get activated and you can enter your numbers. Effective length parameters for top chord and bottom chord. I'm going to keep this as auto, but if you untick this, you can actually enter these numerically. Developed length for brace cap. I'm going to keep it as is. Wall truss sheath for top chord and bottom chord. I'm going to keep this as is as well. For designer preferences, this is just the node settings, and you're going to see the nodes in a little bit, and the line detect if you want to show rulers or not, show origin, and create truss label as well. If you go here to engineering, I'm going to skip this for now, but if you wanted to engineer your truss, you're going to have to enter some settings for your loads. These are settings over here, and then there's a general load setting, deflection, wind, snow, other, and combinations. I'm going to skip this for today. This is not within our scope for this week's webinar. And here for the reports, if you wanted to create reports, you would tick these: fabrication drawing, engineering drawing, detailed engineering drawing, and you can enter some company information over here. The last thing is these at the bottom. I'm going to keep them ticked: interactive, web on launch, and replicate identical. But there's only one, so this doesn't really matter. That's it. I'm going to click on OK, and then we're going to go to the next step of our truss creation. This takes us to this dialog box over here. This is a truss designer, and it shows you the name of the envelope that we're working on. It's T002. If there's a project name, it would show up here. Quantity is just one for now, and it's not analyzed, and we're not going to be analyzing it for today. Here you can clear all, you can center, generate web, clear web, and you can zoom in or out. And you'll notice that the software has created this profile using the envelope that we had previously created. So what you can do over here is set bottom chord fully bearing. You can also flip along truss plane. This is for stub truss, partial cap bracing. This takes you back to the setting where we just were, where we set up everything before we reached over here. So if you wanted to make any changes, you can go back to the settings. I'm going to skip the engineering portion and the generate report. The view type, you can see the truss as lines, physical, analysis, and physical analysis. This is for line creation, for top, bottom, oddball. If you wanted to make changes to any of these lines or nodes, you can make changes using the nodes over here. You can create new nodes or move original nodes by using coordinates or offset by a certain number. These numbers over here show you the spacing between the members. And if you double click on any one of these members, you'll get this other dialog box that shows you what this physical member is. I'm looking at a top track, and this is what's being used. Remember, we mentioned that MWF will automatically use the first one unless we specify otherwise. You can pick something else from this list over here. Let's create our truss by clicking OK. And we just created our truss. I'm just going to select it, HI, just so you can see the truss that we have just created. Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about is how to create a floor truss, just like this example we see over here. I'm in a different view. These are independent floors. They're not part of the model, just because I just wanted to show you what you can create with the floor module. First of all, we have to switch from the truss module to the floor module. And by the way, you can create a truss using the same technique that we just did for these trusses over here. What you would need to do is really the same process that we did. You would have to select the floor. You have to use common, and you can even just use create. And then you would have to specify some references. You do need these walls. However, if we're using the floor module, you don't need the walls. And this is the module that we're going to use for today's webinar. So I'm going to switch from the truss module to the floor module. You'll notice that the menu is in green, and we're going to be using the create option over here to create different kinds of floor panels and trusses. If you select a floor, hit create. These are the templates that you receive out of the box with MWF. You can use any of these templates to create your own templates. There's only one folder that comes out of the box, but you can create other folders as well. And these are the templates that I want to show you. I'll start with the basic one, the light gauge. I'm going to click on Frame It Now and hit Create. And we've created a floor panel. You can see here that we have the nodes. And if I hover over here and click on Tab, you'll notice that we have the lines, which MWF creates. Here is the label, and this is the arrow that controls the direction of the panel. The other type is here. If I use Create, you can create a back-to-back truss. So here, the software can rename everything for you, or you can enter a name. You can auto-rename all. I'm going to auto-rename all. And now the software is creating trusses using the floor module. And here we have created a back-to-back truss. The third option is to create a wall truss. I'm just going to auto-rename all. And I just wanted to show you the different types of trusses or floor panel that you can create with the floor module. So what you could do is actually let's select one member and go to Properties, and you can make changes to this floor truss. Now we're using the floor module, so the interface looks different. You can make changes to the name, position, and type, panel prefix, alternate name, panel suffix, division number, and use the truss grid. But here in Member Properties, you can modify end joists, side tracks, joists, and cutbacks. If you click on or double click on joist, this takes you to another interface or dialog box. And it looks like a hybrid between the floor module or the classic floor panel module and between the truss module that we just saw. It's a little bit different, but it's very, very similar. First of all, here, you can pick fixed spacing for the method. The spacing can be defined over here. So unlike the truss module, you can define the spacing over here. You can make a general spacing and a first offset. This is where you specify the truss depth. And everything you see here is going to be identical to what we've seen in the truss module. So I'm not going to go over it for now. It would be very repetitive. It's pretty much the same. And I just want to mention that you can engineer floor trusses as well if you're using advanced metal. That's it. I'm going to click on OK. The last thing I want to mention here is that you can rotate the direction of the truss using these arrows. So this is another difference between the two modules. This is not something you can do with the truss module. So if I rotate this arrow like this, and then I regenerate the floor panel, you'll notice that I just changed the orientation of this truss or floor panel. Before we jump back to our model and create some shop drawings, I just want to mention that if you wanted to create a shop drawing for this floor panel over here, you can use our floor manufacturing tools over here. You have to set up a drawing manager setting, and then you simply click on shop drawings and create a floor shop drawing for this specific panel over here. For these two, you actually need to switch from the floor module to the truss module, and we're going to be using these tools over here under truss manufacturing. Let's go back to our model now. The first one, where it says outputs, you can create a DXF file for each truss. And you would place this in a folder that you would specify. The next option is the shop drawings, and the last option is the bill of material report. Let's start with this one. So to talk about our shop drawings in our truss module, this is the dialog box that you would receive. You do have options. You can create a new folder for the view options. View option files, you start off with just one, and you can duplicate and create more. You can click on edit to make some editing, and you can simply click on generate if you had something already selected and you want to generate a shop drawing and your settings are already ready. You can also import or export view options as well, but let's just set up a few things first. So I'm going to click here on edit, and then you get this other dialog box. The measurement, we're using feet. You set the view direction to front or back. The view prefix is defined over here, and you can add a view suffix. The preferred scale is specified over here, and I'm just going to use this one for now. You can click on custom and use another custom scale. And these are the view options. What we will be creating is a bill of material and a truss framing elevation. These are the sheets that you can create, and I'm just going to use this one for now. You can save and close. You can also edit selected sheets properties, and this is the sheet layout directory. Let's click here. This takes you to a specific location. This location can be found in your PC, local C, program data, StrucSoft Solutions. I'm using 2024. This is the shop drawing folder, Trusses, Imperial, and sheet layouts. You do receive 2 sheets out of the box, and you can customize these and use them to make your own. To find them, you would need to go to the home directory. This folder is located in this PC, local C, program data, StrucSoft Solutions. I'm going to click here on 2023. We would like to go to shop drawings. We want the truss shop drawings. There's imperial or metric, sheet layouts, and these are the 2 sheets that you would receive out of the box. This is what the title block or the sheet project looks like. You'll notice that this is an RVT file. So this is a Revit file that contains a title block. So if I double click over here, this is the title block that comes out of the box with MWF. You can use this to make your own. And this file comes defined with 2 zones, just like we see over here, which is something that you can change. You can change or move the zones. This one is for the elevation, and this is for the bill of material. And by the way, this is very, very similar to what you would also have to do for your wall truss, for your wall shop drawings and for your floor shop drawings. It's the same logic, where you would have an external file that is an MWF sheet that has zones. You can make changes to these zones by moving them around. You can also change the dimensions from over here, the width, the height, the title height as well, and the name. You can change the name from over here. Let's start with the truss framing elevation first. Let's double click, and then you go to this dialog box that is dedicated to the framing elevation setup. This option here displays dimensions. We want to keep that ticked for today. If you untick it, everything here gets deactivated. The dimension properties, you can leave a line gap or create a line gap, slope gap from line, and you specify the dimension type. These have to be already existing in your Revit file. You want to add vertical dimensions or not with this tick. So for vertical members, dimension alignment can be start, center, or end. Dimension position can be above or below. Dimension style can be continuous, baseline, or ordinate. And you can add ordinate dimensions for each dimension line. The ordinate type can be defined from over here. I'm just using the default ordinates basic A 1/1/16 of an inch. You can display length below or above, and for the truss style, you can pick from over here what dimensions you want to show. Then you can also display label, the text note type. This is just the text that you would define, the type. Label orientation, do you want it to be with the direction of the member, perpendicular of member, or horizontal? Label positioning, I'm going to keep it as center. Label method could be by schedule label or by label. I'm going to start with label for now, and then we'll come back and check out the schedule label. You can edit tags from here. This is the viewport type. It could be viewport 1 or title with line. The name on the sheet can be defined over here. If you're using linked files, you would tick over here and you can use a linked file. If you're using external Revit files, you can use a view template if you have one or not. I'm not going to use one for today. The detail level needs to be fine so that you can see it properly. It could be either medium or fine. It should not be coarse. Visual style can be any one of these, shaded with edges, consistent colors, realistic. So I'm going to use shaded with edges. You can pick visible categories from here. And if you click on the plus sign, you can see the options. And you can add any one of these if you want to show them in your shop drawing. I'm going to stop here and click on OK. And then we're going to talk about the truss bill of material. The truss bill of material has this dialog box where you specify where you want to have your the table layout, the column header alignment. I'm going to keep it center. The column body alignment, I'm going to keep as center. The outer line style, medium lines is fine. Inner line style, also medium lines. As for the schedule itself, the can be defined from over here. The default is already created for you, label, materials, length, weight, and quantity. You can add or remove. So you can add additional fields and you can remove them. You can move them to the top or bottom. You can tick display title or not. The title can be also, the text for the title can be defined from here. Column header, column body, preferred scale, viewport type. Name on the sheet is bill of materials. I'm going to keep it as is. And this is the display units. You can round it as well. And the weight, you can change the density. You can display total member quantity, display total truss weight, and display weight of all trusses. These are just ticks. And OK. The last thing we have to do is specify the sheet. So I'm going to click on this one, edit, selected sheets properties. And remember the sheet that we just saw? This is how we place these views on the sheet, basically. These are the zones that we just saw. First of all, here is the sheet name method. It's either by family name or fixed name. Number of trusses on sheet is going to be 1. You can also have a fixed name, prefix, suffix, drawn by, and checked by. The sheet layout can be defined from over here. We're using this one actually for now. It's an A4 landscape. These are the zones that we just saw. And when you select these dots over here, you're basically placing the view on the zone in a specific location. So I'm going to keep it as is. This one's going to be the truss framing elevation. This one is going to be the truss bill of material. And I'm going to click on OK. And now we're ready to create shop drawings. So I'm just going to save and close. I'm going to close this. And let's create a shop drawing for one of these trusses. So now that I have everything set up, I select one truss. And then I click on shop drawings. I select the view option I want and I click on generate. You'll notice here in the project browser under sheets that there's a new shop drawing that has just populated. If you click on the plus sign, you'll notice that this sheet consists of 2 views. Let's double click here and take a look. So this is the shop drawing that we have just created. It consists of 2 views. One of them is the elevation view that we see over here, and one of them is the schedule. The elevation view has the specific dimensions and labeling that we have specified, and the schedule consists of the items that we wanted to show. I just want to talk to you about something over here. So when we use the label technique, we're showing the quantity for each individual member. It's showing up as 1 for all of them. We have another option, which is to show the quantity of members that are identical or have identical characteristics. These can be combined under one label, and you can see a specific number show up over here. We're going to use the other technique or the other schedule for our floor truss. Let's go back to our model and let's create a floor truss shop drawing for this truss over here. So we're going to go back click on Shop Drawings. But now we're going to make a small change, a very small change actually. You can duplicate and make another view option for this, but I'm just going to go ahead and double click, or you're going to click on Edit. And I'm just going to make a change over here under Truss Framing Elevation. Double click. I'm going to change the label method. Instead of by label, I'm going to use by schedule label. And this way, your schedule is going to show up with a specific count for specific members that are identical. So it's just going to combine them under one label called the schedule label. Save and close. And I'm going to click on Generate. You'll notice over here under Sheets, we have a new sheet that was just created with 2 views. So this is the shop drawing that we have created for the floor truss. It shows an elevation and it shows a schedule. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit just to show that the schedule looks different because we have specified a different method. And you'll notice that this schedule contains a different label. So right now, this label is showing 5 of the same characteristic or the same looking member. And so it combined them. And this is really the difference between the 2 schedules. The last thing to talk about is the bill of material report, and we're done for today. Let's say we want to make a bill of material report. You would specify where you want to place this bill of material. You can select multiple. I'm just going to select one and click on Finish. You can specify the label method. It could be by schedule label or by label. And then you can click on OK. And this is going to generate the report. To find it, you have to go to the folder that we have just specified. And it's going to be a CSV file. If you double click, it's going to look like this. And that's it. This concludes our webinar for today. I hope you found it useful, and thank you for listening, everyone. Have a great day.